Hall of Fame broadcaster Marty Brenneman here, and you're stepping inside the mayor's office. Here's your host, Sean Casey.
All right, Case.
All right, Chance, here we go, baby. Another episode. This one is going to be a dandy.
Mm-hmm.
Before we bring this guy in, let's roll what you got planned, which is going to be the awesomeness of our next guest.
Here we go.
Okay. 17-year big league career, Reds, Dodgers, Tigers, Orioles, Cardinals, Giants, mostly with the Red domination. Two-time All-Star, 1987, 1989. One of two players ever to hit 25 homers and steal 80 bags in a season. Oh, my God. 96 NL Comeback Player of the Year, 97 Roberto Clemente Award winner, two-time Silver Slugger Award, three-time Gold Glove. One of the best athletes this game's probably ever seen. In 87, hit 293 with almost a 400 on base, 37 bombs, 100 RBIs, and there's that 50 stolen bases again. 1990 World Series champ, came out the gates where they swept Oakland in 4 games. Big home run to start it. Age 35, this guy hit 327, 28 bombs, 89 ribbies, 97 OPS. Inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame in 2005. One of the most dynamic players Major League Baseball has ever seen. They used to call him 44 Magnum or Eric the Red. Let's bring in my man and good friend, Eric Davis.
Thanks. What's happening, man? What's happening?
ED, how you doing, man? How's everything going?
Man, everything is great, man. That check is in the mail, man. That's one of the best intros I had in a long time, baby. So I appreciate the love.
Hey, I just want everyone to know, bro. It's funny. I was a few people this week, they're asking me, hey, who's on the mayor's office week? I said, I'm bringing in Eric Davis. And they're like, Eric Davis. Like, it's amazing, bro. Like, looking back, like, you captivated a lot of people with your play, like stuff that people had never seen before. And I just think it's cool. Looking back and doing my homework, I'm like, man, this guy was a stud. You know what I mean? So pretty cool, bro. Pretty cool. Where are you? You're out in Chandler, Arizona right now. What's Eric Davis doing these days?
Well, actually, I just finished instructional league because we just had instructional league and we finished up about 4 or 5 days ago. So I'm still special assistant to player performances as players of development. So I've been on the phones and watching and going to some of the ACL games and watching some of the fall league and having meetings about the upcoming year. We lost some good players in our minor league system. So we're just trying to bring some guys in and refill those voids.
ED, are you enjoying that role? Is it like, is it enough baseball for you? Just enough? But how are you enjoying that role with the Reds?
Well, it's never enough baseball. If it's in your DNA, the case, it's always in it. No matter how much we complain about it, we still love it. I do what I do. I enjoy doing what I do. Actually, I just concluded my 14th year in this role and doing what I'm doing with Cincinnati. So I don't see myself, God willing, with them having me, I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. But what I will say is that it's becoming more and more difficult when you're having to battle so many different things and people on the outside that have joined our game on different capacities and trying to get them to understand that baseball is still baseball no matter what you try to filter into it.
Wow, man, that's a great topic because, working at MLB Network, I mean, it seems like, we have shows dedicated to the analytics of the game and all the different, BABIPs and wars. It feels like a fantasy game, fantasy baseball at times. And I know for myself as a hitter, like, it was tough enough to see it and hit it. Like, I was like, don't give me all those stats. Like, that drives me crazy. Can you talk about that a little bit about, I know they're trying to marry the analytics and guys that have played the game, but you kind of being an old school guy that played the game at such a high level. Can you talk about your feelings on all that?
And I watch you guys, and I know you guys cringe sometimes, and I know that when you're getting paid by somebody, you have to abide by whatever those rules and topics are. And I know sometimes you guys have meetings before the meetings to talk about what the meeting's going to be about. And then when you meet, you having conversations about who's going to say what, how it's going to come off, who's going to lead, who's not going to do that. And that's tough to really speak your mind sometimes. And I respect a lot of you guys on what y'all doing, how you go about your business. I don't work for MLB Network, so I can say what I need to say about what it is. And analytics is not new. They're trying to make it new. Numbers have always been a part of sports. That's what we have. That's what we judge ourselves on. People that are baseball people, Case, don't have problems with analytic people. Analytic people have problems with baseball.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
Because everybody in that whole setting, and I'm not stereotyping anybody, but the people that are in that setting, you can only get so much. Everybody can get an A on the test. So when you get that degree in accounting, everybody can get the same grade. Ain't no A plus, and you gotta no. But when you marry baseball to that, there are different levels of knowledge and experience with this game. And I tell people, I'm a student of analytics, but what they fail to realize is analytics is what has already happened in the past. So I don't think anybody know analytics more than I do, because they use my numbers to try to figure out what's going on in analytics. So who put the numbers up? I know how I put them up. I know how they came astute. So all of that is where the game is. And where we're losing, Sean, is that you're not allowing people to be who they are. You're not allowing the instincts. You're not allowing what you feel about a person. Your eyes tell you something in this game that analytics don't, because it's just numbers driven. So every year they're trying to bring something else to create the eye, like how many hard hit balls and exit velo, all the different things that you can look at and say, that's a line drive. I don't need to know how many miles an hour it was. So it gives them something to keep pushing, in effect, to take away from what we see naturally.
Yeah. Well, I always think too, ED, like, going back, like if you started, like if you did the analytics and you early in my career, you said I couldn't hit lefties, I would have been a platoon guy, but I had to learn to hit lefties. I had to play every day. I had to get out there and get those at bats. If you started analyzing me at an early age, well, all of a sudden you make me a guy that just faces righties, and I don't have the career I had, which a lot of different guys would be in that same boat. The other day, Ian Anderson's pitching for the Braves. He's got a 5-inning no-hitter, and they take him out because thinking that, the third time around the rotation, these guys hit him or whatever. But I know for me, if I'm in the game and a guy's dealing like he's dealing, well, no one's hitting him, for the rest of the game probably. You could bring a bazooka out of the bullpen. You know what I mean? Do something. Just get a new guy in there. So I agree. I feel like we're losing the feel of what the players feel on the field, and just so
I don't
much
think we're losing the feel.
books.
I think we've lost the feel. I think with Dusty and with Stinker in the World Series, they're trying to captivate that feel again. We've lost the feel.
Yeah.
That's in the past. That's what analytics, that's in the past. Everything about the field is aftermath.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because the game is played in the now. And you're trying to use something that's in the past to dictate what's going to happen in the now. And where we lose it is that the instinctual of being able to help me right now. This is why you got data. This is why you have iPads to go look at what he's already done. Or if a guy is coming in from the bullpen, I see him go to the iPad. Well, he getting ready to warm up on the mound right now. All you got to look at, he going to throw 7 pitches, so 5 of them going to be his best pitches because he got to pitch. So it's always using something to take away from the moment, which he's warming up in the moment. And that's where the game is suffering, because everybody talking about this game is making adjustments, correct?
Yes.
I don't need to make an adjustment after the game because I got to deal with Randy Johnson tomorrow. I just left Pedro. So I don't have time to look at what Pedro just did. I got to deal with Randy ass tomorrow. So what I just did with Pedro has nothing to do with what I'm going to do with Randy tomorrow. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So me, after the game, it's over. It's over. I'm moving on to the next guy. So I don't have time to look at what happened yesterday and try to figure out how I'm going to compete today, because they're apples and oranges, because I got a total different picture in a total different setting on how it might rain. It might be 90. You don't know what the scenario is going to be. So I can't deal with that at that particular time. And that's where we've lost what we're doing in the moment in the game today.
Yeah. Yeah. Change.
Yeah. Oh, ED, taking that exact thing and bringing it into the youth world now, like I have a little cousin who last summer was all excited that he had a 400 on base percentage. And I'm like, you're 9 years old, like swinging a baseball bat. So like, what do you relate? Like, how would you speak to the parents who are like, first of all, the kids are paying just baseball, no other sports, and they're teaching them at a young age, like launch angle and get on base, and a walk is good or better than a hit.
Wrong, Rich. It's all wrong, and I think the kids are suffering. People keep talking about what these kids are doing and how they're talking about their on base percentage and launch angle, and I'm paying this guy to do this. The only thing I can really say is that if you had $1 million, if you had $100 million, who would you trust to invest that money? Would it be somebody you just saw off of YouTube? Or would you try to find somebody that's been used to dealing with that kind of money every day to give you the best quality advice? Right. So that's where our game is. We're finding people who think that baseball is a science. And if that was a fact, you would see scientists batting third in the World Series right now. I ain't seen a scientist with a white jacket at home plate yet. Baseball is a skillful game with scientific tendencies because the individualism on who does what, where, and how. See, that's the beauty of this game. Is you can take someone like myself and you can take someone like Case, but our hand-eye coordination is almost equal, regardless to whether we bat left-handed, right-handed, our body style, how fast I am. That has no bearing on when we getting ready to turn that stick loose. And so moving into what's naturally a individual mechanism, we're trying to say if you swing this way, the ball is gonna. No. If you watch anybody that's teaching that type of swing, watch what they're practicing. They're either soft tossing or they're doing it off the tee.
Yes.
Where it's at the lowest maximum speed that you can do at the lowest part, and they're swinging and they're throwing it in a level where they're going to swing. Unfortunately, during the game, there's velocity, there's up, down, in, out, change speed. So it doesn't correlate. It's called hand-eye coordination for a reason. And when you talk about hips and body and the knee bone is connected to the thigh bone and this, all of that, you breaking down hitting. But the closer your head to that zone, the closer your hands are to the zone. And it's called hand-eye coordination. Hitting is about angles. I didn't make the field the way that it is. So I have to be able to repeat. And kids today don't know angles. They don't teach angles. How can you be 12 years old taking hitting lessons? You ain't know if you're going to play baseball 2 more years.
So true.
I just don't get it. But if you look at a lot of these parents, they see what's happening. They see $300 million. They see this. They see that. They see all that. So just like myself and Case, and probably you, Rich, if you have kids, you want your kids to have more than what you had. So you go the extra mile to give it to them.
Right.
But am I doing this a service of giving it to him, or am I giving him a service by having him work for it? And so we're losing the microwavable society because there is no effort to work for it or to understand failure or to understand that I ain't gonna win yet, but my path might be different than Sean's or whoever's. I wasn't a lottery pick, but it didn't stop me from doing my thizzle when I got into the game. So everybody has to understand that each sport that you play gives you something that you didn't see. And the things that you guys are talking about with me came from running back punts and playing wide receiver, came from me being point guards catching lobs. Now, I learned how to go over the fence because I knew how to rebound. So I knew how to dunk. I mean, I learned my body control on running the bases from playing basketball. Right. So every other sport gives you something that the other sport cannot give you. And I'm gonna tell you something where there's a problem too is with these high school coaches who think they're holier than thou. And if you don't play for me during the spring, you can't play during the spring and fall. So all these athletic directors in high school that are allowing these coaches to dictate what a young kid, 15, 16 years old, can only play one sport, you need to be evaluated and your job should be taken.
That's awesome.
Because that makes no sense.
All right.
That is so good. And I think it's starting. I hope that it's at some point it turns back too, because at the end of the day, if I'm a scout, I'm looking at you going, okay, is this kid athletic enough to go to that next level, especially when you talk about Division I baseball or Division II, III, or pro ball. ED, I want to stay there really quick because I want to go back to you, brother. I want to go back to you just talked right there, playing football, playing basketball, playing baseball. Basketball was your first love, though, right? When you were growing up out there in LA, when I was reading up on, they said you always want to play in the NBA, and dude, it looked like you were balling too. Like my basketball career ended in 7th grade because I was the kid that dribbled to the corner, like quit dribbling right. I'm like, I don't know how to dribble left. You know what I mean? But with you, man, you were averaging close to 30 points a game, 10 assists. You were balling. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Why you end up choosing baseball and what basketball meant to you?
I didn't, growing up in South Central, you didn't really, like the whole getting drafted and all that kind of stuff didn't really resonate, even though at my high school, we had the most at that time in the country was 19 major leaguers from Fremont High School.
Wow.
And so, but none of them ever came back. I saw them on the wall and all that kind of stuff. So they was just a myth to me. So I played because it was fun and it kept me off the streets and I loved doing it.
Yeah.
I can recall when the draft happened, they told me to stay at home. There was no MLB network and it was all the glitz and glamour you see like that. So, after the first 2 rounds, I didn't get drafted. I went back to school. They were like, no, man, they got some more rounds. I'm like, they're going to call me later. So I went back to school. But that's how naive I was. And I got drafted the next day. They say, well, they got another day. I was like, well, they're going to have to hit me on the run because I ain't going to sit by the phone. Mind you, right, that was when your line was busy. It'd be like, bum, bum, bum. And so you didn't have to call waiting another shit that was going on like that. So wasn't no cable, so I'd have just been sitting at home like this, waiting on the phone to ring or something like that. So you didn't have a game. You didn't have all the little things you play with now. So everything we did as a kid back then, you got out the house.
Right.
So I had just finished being all state and all the stuff in baseball, and the draft came up, and I was in a baseball frame of mind. But I tell people this all the time, and I believe this 100%. Had I graduated high school after basketball season, I would have went to college.
Wow.
Because I was in that frame of mind, and the game and everything was exciting, and we just lost to Crenshaw in the playoffs and everything. So you had that whole mindset was like, I got to get revenge. I'm in that mindset. So it was just more of a decision at that time to either sign or go to college. Half the coaches that I took recruiting trips with that I was telling them to come in, they didn't even know I had signed. I signed and was gone. They were looking for me somewhere. They saw me at Baseball America. Oh, damn. He was gone, So it was just one of those things, man.
Oh, my God. So good. It's amazing that you can pick. You could have choose go play big time Division I basketball or just go play pro ball. What's pretty good that you can make that choice. AD, what about you growing up out there in South Central LA? Like, who were your biggest influences on you, and like, what were some of the lessons that you learned growing up that you brought with you to the minor leagues?
Actually, Case, at that time, my dad was my influence. Because he worked 2 jobs, and then we'd be playing at the school, and he'd get off working his. I wasn't able to outrun my daddy till I got to be 17 years old. and him and my mother used to get into it because me and my brother would come back, and we'd be bleeding and bullied and stuff, and he'd be done elbowed us and beat us all up and stuff. So I learned at a young age how to survive in sports and the streets, and growing up in LA, where you had to fight your way on to school and fight your way home. So I also learned is that the biggest, baddest dude is the dude that don't run his mouth.
Wow.
So the dude that was running his mouth, if you sock him, you didn't have to worry about nothing else. So you was gonna have to, because In the streets, guys who don't talk, you watch those guys because they sit back trying to figure out what to do. A guy that's running his mouth is really the scariest one. So you hit him, you ain't got to worry about nobody else. So those are the tricks and the trades of the streets that you learn just growing up. So I was more in fear of my parents than I was somebody on the street. So you wanted to take my jacket when I know my mama at home. Now, well, we was going to have to fight on the way to school, and we fought on the back way to school. So I learned how to survive at a young age where I didn't bother nobody. We wasn't poor or anything like that, but we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we wasn't poor. So knowing how to survive that scenario, the minor leagues was gravy.
Wow.
And you gonna pay me to play when I've been playing for free my whole life? But the most difficult thing about that was being away from home at 18 years old. And I'm going from a place where there was graffiti and broken glass everywhere and gang affiliations to Eugene, Oregon, which is probably the cleanest city in the world. I went from one far extreme and said, I finished my potato chips. I put them in my coat pocket because I didn't want to go to jail for littering in Oregon at 18 years old. In LA, you just ball them and keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? So I was around like, damn, I don't want to go to jail. I tell my mom I went to jail for littering and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Eric, was it here
so
on the?
I learned
okay.
that there was something more than where I was, and that everywhere that you went wasn't like this, and that was the best thing for me. I didn't realize it at that time, but that was the best thing for me, was to leave home and go somewhere else and learn different cultures and different way people did certain things.
Eric, when here on the East Coast, I'm in New York, so growing up, all my stories I heard were like, Stephon Marbury, Kenny Anderson, Sebastian Telfair, those guys. The biggest dangers to them being the prospects were the people who were taking care of them. Like, maybe they were getting some money in their pockets and maybe they were getting taken care of. But then once they got to the pros, you saw the things where it's like, well, you owe me now, Steph or whoever. But did that happen to you guys, like you and Daryl growing up? Like, were people trying to?
Nah, I didn't need nobody to take care of me. That's why I had a mother and a father. So that's why I said I was so blessed. And I do realize that there are single mothers who raise a lot of these kids, and the streets eventually catch up with them, because if you're a single mother and you got 3 kids and you got to work 2 jobs, you don't have time to mentor at home as much as you want to. When you leave, kids asleep. When you come back, you hope that they're asleep. So I get that aspect of it, but I was always taught in the streets, and my brother gang banged, and may he rest in peace. He did his thing in the streets and stuff, but there was a time where gangs would protect you in a way to say, this is not for you. And we're not going to allow you to be a part of this. The big brothers, the OGs and stuff that was in the hood, they would, if they saw something in you, they wouldn't allow you to interact into this lifestyle because they knew how it was. So they protected me in a form of keeping me away from it. And not to say that I wanted to join it, but everybody, Sean, is a victim of their surroundings, good, bad, or indifferent. You are what you are where you grew up at. Doesn't mean you have to stay that way, good or bad. But you are what you are, and they wouldn't allow me. So it wasn't difficult for me not to do that. But the hardest part is when everybody that you know either play ball, sell dope, or they're in the game.
Wow.
That's your neighborhood. So you don't see them as bad dudes because you see them every day. But what I did have to realize is when I left and I would come back, I couldn't hang out on the corner with the same guys, because I don't know I've been gone 8 months. I don't know if you killed 3 people. I don't know who's looking for you, whatever the case may be.
Wow, yeah.
So I would honestly tell them, I'm like, I can't do that. But what I would do was I would invite them to my house because I was in control of my settings. So I can dictate whether it's a shootout, whether it's dope, whatever it is, that has to go through me. Now, I know what I did last night. I don't know what you did. So I would try to bring them out of that scenario to see that there is more than what's down here. And people used to say you changed, and I changed because I don't drink a 40 on the corner with you no more. Then I started to realize that my real friends was encouraging me not to be down there, not to go down there to be like, homie, give back and all that stuff. To me is a myth. Why? It's because don't nobody own no real estate in the hood. You paying rent. So being loyal to the hood, I never understood that, and I don't understand it now. Being loyal to the hood for what? So, and a lot of my buddies was in jail. They gang banged. Some of them dead. Some of them still doing what they're doing. But your real friends are going to influence you in the way not to come back to wherever I came from, and that's what I had.
Wow. So, Edie, Eugene, Oregon. So you come back. Obviously, that was an eye-opening experience for you coming from South Central, going to Eugene. Can you talk about your rise in the minor leagues to when you really felt like, you know what, I'm starting to get this pro baseball thing, and I got a real shot to play in the big leagues. Not only play in the big leagues, but star in the big leagues. When did that thought process start to click for you?
Well, it was a process, and like I say, son, everybody's process is different. I got drafted as a shortstop, and I felt like I could have played shortstop in the major leagues, but back then we didn't have what you have now. You didn't have minor league instructors. You didn't have infield guys. You didn't have hitting. Ted Klaczewski used to come down to spring training and talk to everybody for 15 minutes, and that was your two list. And I mean, Ted was gone. He was like, everybody's boy, you got right there, and then you left me. I'd be like, Ted, what does that mean? He said, ED, you were swinging real good, and then you left me. That means you kept pulling your head off the ball. So I learned differently what Ted was meaning and stuff like that. But you didn't have that. It was a manager, and you hope he played. You had a pitching coach, and you had a trainer. Those were the three people that was part of the minor leagues. So I was just a young 18-year-old guy. So my habits were terrible as a shortstop, but I could catch the ball and throw the ball and stuff, but I didn't move right. So I wasn't a lottery pick, so they didn't have nothing vested in me. So it was either release me or move me to another position. So Greg Riddock was my manager in Eugene. And he ended up telling them, let him play the outfield for me. So when I got to Eugene, I went to Eugene twice. And he asked me, had I ever played outfield before? I said, no. And he said, okay. So they gave me a big old Wilson A2XXXL. I don't know if you remember that big one. Like it was.
Hell yeah.
Well, you can steal groceries and everything in that glove. You can get some clothes, shoes. You can put everything in that glove, right? So the first game I'm in left field, Anthony Walker, he was from San Diego. He was a real good outfielder. He ended up making it to the big leagues with the Astros in the 80s. He was playing center field. And the second inning, he pulled a hamstring. And Greg Riddock moved me to center field, and he never played center field ever again. And that year, I hit, and that was a short season, I hit 320.
Wow.
With 14 homers and 40 bases in 62 games. And from there, I went to the A-ball, and I played well, got put on the roster then, and everything else was history. But I knew my first big league camp, I knew that I could play with that level when I started seeing and feeling comfortable facing. See, that's back when big league pitchers pitched. And the closers threw in the ninth inning with the game on the line. They didn't start the game and stuff. So just watching, I remember the first person I ever was in awe of was Willie Wilson. And we was in Tampa, and George Brett, Willie was Kansas City came over to play us. And so Willie got a base hit, and George Brett hit a one hopper to Eddie Milner in center field. And they was holding Willie up at third.
Oh my God!
I thought he ran across the mound. I thought I was fast. It seemed like he ran across the mound, and I was like, and Willie was about 6'3.5", 6'2", 6'3". He was a tall man. But watching Willie Wilson run, I was like, oh my God, these are grown men. That's when I knew they was grown men.
Right.
But I hit a home run off of Dan Quisenberry in the ninth inning of that game. And that perpetuated me to that, like, yeah, you can. Because when you came to the big leagues in my era, you got Steve Carlton, you got
Nolan Ryan,
Tom Seaver, you had Vita Blue, you got legendary guys. Then my first home run was off Jerry Kuzman in Philadelphia. So you had legendary guys who had legendary careers, and you was like, oh my God, that's such and such. So once I got past that aura of who they were, then my game just started to perpetuate itself into what it ended up being.
Wow. I want to talk about that. You talk about Dan Quisenberry, you get in that game, you go deep. I want to go back, ED, because your swing was what we used to play wiffle ball in the backyard. We'd be like, oh man, I'm Eric Davis, and my hands would be down by my knees. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna hit this ball, but but I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna sure find a way. Like when I look back at you, ED, first off, some of the most electric hands in 150 years of Major League Baseball. But can you talk about your style and where did that come from? Because you would never teach Eric Davis's style, but man, did it work well for you and that bat speed you could create with it.
Well, it's two parts of that, Sean. The first part of that is I didn't hit like that in the minor leagues. I was closed and my hands was up here like
really
here. But I was good enough to get away with it there because I was talented enough to be able to hit whatever. And then when I got to the major leagues, the guys that I named before that, now you facing them on a continuous basis, and now they was able to dissect where my holes were. And at that time, it's not about hitting weaknesses, because if you notice, every hitter has a weakness. But your weakness, just like any other great hitter, weakness is not with strikes. Your weakness is with balls. So I didn't understand how to have the discipline to say no to certain pitches. So I had to switch my stance to see certain pitches better. And when I did that, the results still didn't change. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I had to figure out the discipline part of hitting. Not to say work on how do you work on 96 up and in? How do you work on a slider down and away? You don't. So I had to learn to say ball one, ball two, move that 96 to the strike zone. I got you. Down and away, no. 2-0 sliders for strikes, I can hit you. We don't have problem with strikes.
Right.
We have problems going outside of the zone. So once I learned the discipline, that's when things started to take off with me. Now, the most important part of my game that really made me electric was Billy Morris took the bat out of my sockets and put them in my fingertips.
Okay.
And that's gave me that extra whip, the electricity that you guys saw in my bat speed, that gave me the enhancement of what you saw. Because Billy Morris had came from Montreal, and he had Tim Wallach and Hubie Brooks and Andre Dawson and Tim Raines and all of those guys. And he said they put it in their fingertips. See, this was before you had the little things that you put on your thumbs. If you blew your thumb up, your thumb got big as hell. So you had to figure out how to hold the bat with that thing. You couldn't have no protection. you walk around like you had two big old bears on your hands. But that was how you knew that you was holding the bat wrong, because they would blow your thumb up. So he taught me how to put that bat in my fingertips, and that's when you really saw the electricity in my swing.
So how? But what about your setup though, E? Like how you like?
I never hit with my hands down.
I know. Well, I know. As soon as you went to swing, your hands came up.
Everybody see me say, "How did you hit with your hands down there?" I'd be like, "I didn't." But every picture you showed me, I was in my leg kick and my hands was down by my waist. So. But once my foot went down, my hands came back up around my chest. And that's where I took off some. But it was about relaxing. And me just standing there, just relaxing, it brought a calmness to me. Because when you hold the bat up on a certain style, you flex. and you get tight because you're just holding the bat. So I would take a deep breath and then just let it twirl and twirl and twirl and go. So I kind of ease my way into the relaxation of how I started my swing.
I always tell that to kids. Hey, listen, the first thing we got to talk about is tension's poison. If you got tension in your setup and when you're getting going, you're in big trouble because, like you said, if I'm tense and Johnny hitting coach is flipping balls to me as a soft tosser off a tee, I can do it. I get 97 cutting and sinking and curve balls and sliders, and I'm tense. Forget about it. You should start playing lacrosse or tennis or something because baseball's not your sport.
I'm gonna tell you something else, though, Case. Is two ways to get to that slot. And if you look at all of us, I don't care where you start, I'm gonna get somewhere in that slot right here where I can see my barrel.
Right.
It's only two ways you can get there. From here, or you got to come up to it. So people run away from the upness because they think that you hit from there. Right. So either you're going to go up to that slot or you got to come down to that slot. It don't matter, but it's just a matter of how you teach them to get into that slot.
Wow. Can I ask both of you guys a question? Two amazing hitters here. I'm watching you do this, Eric. What did you do with your? I had a coach tell me once to put my knuckles, line the knuckles.
The knocking knuckles.
Yeah. What do you?
And that's
what
they
did you
say
guys?
you to put it in your fingertips.
Oh yeah, I guess that's
how. If you put the bat in your fingertips, your knuckles automatically line up, and that's supposed to keep your bat flat all the way through the zone. And I'm gonna tell you a secret that I learned about that too because it's true. It's because before that I would have marks all over my bat, all on the back side of my bat. But when I put it in my fingertips, the bat didn't turn in my hand, so I always judged at how I was doing by all of my marks being in one part of the bat. I don't know if you looked at that too, Casey.
I did.
All of the marks for me was on that right side, on that left side. So that means that my bat was staying flat, I was tension free, and I was not rolling with my swing. If you roll, you get marks all over. I picked up somebody's bat one time. I said, "Man, your bat look like you got the mumps. You got bumps all over your back. You got no chance." He had marks all over his back. Hey, so I was like, "Dude, your back got the measles or something, dude. I don't know what the hell you doing."
Oh my God, dude, that's so good. I used to do the same thing, bro. I used to set it up, and I knew if I was swinging well, I had a ton of the same barrel marks right on the same spots.
Right.
Let's AD talk about the call. Where were you when you got called to the big leagues? And I love this, bro, because we talk about this, when we were at the softball game this year, you talked about, I remember we were downstairs with Doggy Perez and Davey Concepcion and we were talking about Pete and Dan Dreesen and Dave Parker. And you said to me one thing, you said, "Case, what a blessing it was to be with those guys when I came up, like to learn." I mean, I got the chills saying it right now, but to learn the game from those guys. Can you talk about that first time you got called up and then what it was like being with those legends in that clubhouse?
I was in Wichita, Kansas. That was our AAA team in '84. And Gene, first of all, I was mad because I hit like 9 homers in camp, and they took me off the bus when we was supposed to be headed to go north. I was in my suit and everything. So I learned not to make a phone call until you get to the city that you're supposed to be going. Why? Because that saved me some embarrassment from calling my mom and telling them I'm going north, and then I didn't go north.
Yeah.
So I got humbled by being pulled off the bus going north. So we was on the road, and Gene Dusan called me in, and he said, "Congratulations." I thought he was talking about the game I just had and stuff, because I know I probably had 2 hits or stole some bases or something. And he said, "You're going to the big leagues." I said, "When?" He said, "You leaving tomorrow morning?" I was like, "Yeah, right, man." Then what time to bus to the ballpark? Because he said, "No, ED, for real. They in St. Louis, and so you going to this. He said, "Your flight leave at 7 o'clock in the morning." So we was in Louisville. And so once my teammates started to say congratulations, then I kind of knew it was some validity to it. But I still didn't call home. I didn't do none of that kind of stuff because just started that humbling I had early on. So I get to St. Louis, and so Bernie evidently they didn't tell nobody I was coming because I didn't have a uniform. So Bernie was like, "What you doing here?" I was like, "What you doing here?" What you mean what I'm doing here? Like I just showed up. Because you know how Bernie was. He would always get you like, "What you doing here?" Like, "What you doing here?" No, I just came. I called myself up. Shit, you know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to be in the big leagues. I'm gonna call my damn self up. You know what I'm saying?
I should have been here a long time ago. I should have been here a long time ago.
Was it true you didn't have a number on your back in like the first game you played? Is that true?
It was my first at bat. I pinch hit off Joaquin Andujar. And I hit a one-hopper in the hole. Ozzie dove backhanded, picked me up and threw me out. And the first thing I said, got back to the dugout, the guys were like, "Kid, welcome to the big leagues, kid." And this ain't AAA, them is outs up here. So I was like, "Shit, y'all up here?" Hey, Bernie, you ain't got to put no name. I ain't gonna be here long. If that's what I got to deal with every day, you might as well leave me blank. So the next night I started against Dave LaPointe. I got my first hit was a triple off of Dave LaPointe. But it was in St. Louis. But being the only rookie, it was so inviting to the point of learning and watching and listening. I didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. I just knew that it was a thing. And so going on in the clubhouse and watching how they prepared for the game. I remember the first time on the road, I took the bus and they told me a new asshole, excuse my language.
No, it's all right.
And I'm not knowing the rules. I'm taking the bus, okay. But I kind of knew something was wrong and stuff because when I got on the bus, it wasn't nothing but reporters and maybe some old reliever whose knees was hurting and shit. You know what I'm saying? So here I've only won 20 years or 21 years on. I'm on the bus, and when I get there, the hill broke loose. So that's what I learned. The first thing I learned is you never ride the bus. Second of all, it was just watching and learning. I learned how to watch other people's success at a young age. If we was in Montreal, I was watching Tim Raines and Andre Dawson and Hubie Brooks and these guys take batting practice. Dale Murphy, who I loved with the Braves, because I got my relaxing hands from Dale Murphy because if you saw how Dale hit, his hands was always moving and relaxed. Yeah. So I would take bits and pieces and try to incorporate it into my game. And if it didn't work, I would set it aside. And if it did, I always watched guys who was having success. I didn't need to look at a guy that was struggling. I knew how to do that. The shit, out is an out. But you don't always know what you do well. So I'm always watching guys who were playing well. Especially, I didn't really watch left-handers because I wasn't left-handed. But I watched the mindset and how they worked. And then I tried to incorporate that into what I did. But Parker, Concepcion, Cesar Cedeno, Ronnie Oster, Bo Diaz, Buddy Bell. We had the oldest platoon first basemen in the history of the game. Pete Rose and Tony Perez, they were 255 years old still playing first base. So that was huge for me because I led off my whole career. Even in Little League, because I was always the fastest guy and I could steal bases, so they always batted me first. And Pete Rose moved me from leadoff to first base. To hitting fifth. And the first thing I did was I went to Tony Perez and asked him, how do you drive in 100 runs? And he taught me, he said, listen, get the ribbies you're supposed to get without getting a hit.
That's so
He
good.
said, that's the first thing you do is get the ones you're supposed to get without getting a hit. He said, you see them infielders back, hit a ground ball to shortstop or second base. And he said, because you're going to get the ribbies with your home runs and base hits. Wow. But you have to make productive outs when you got runners in scoring position. And that always resonated with me. So after that, I learned how to drive in runs and I learned to be patient from Dave Parker and Pete Rose. I learned to deal with anxiety from those guys who had success in the big leagues altogether. But I also learned constructive criticism because I watched all-stars and future Hall of Famers ride each other on a level where they was going to almost fight. Because, Pete was the manager. Dave Parker won batting titles. Buddy Bell was a perennial all-star. So these guys were like, how you don't get that, and how you don't do this, and why you do that. But it was called constructive criticism. You didn't take it personal. So they was just making sure that they stayed on each other for the betterment of them and the young guy. See, young guys was taught a certain style and mannerisms when you came to the big leagues, and we've lost all of that because you don't have veteran players on these teams no more. Yeah. So it's just like everybody's learning on the job.
I can't imagine too. Like, I know when I came up, I had Greg Vaughn, I had Barry Larkin, I had Pete Harnish, I had these guys that taught me how to be a pro. Right. I think nowadays in the big leagues, they're considering 30-year-olds old. And I'm like, wow, you can't teach experience. Who is going to teach these young kids that are now coming up at 20 years old how to be a professional, how to not ride the bus, how to handle yourself when you're a rookie? There's so many different things, how to play the game. It's so funny you said that about Tony Perez saying that to you, because Ken Griffey Jr. said the same to me. And I know he was raised around, that big red machine. I said to him, I said, Griff, how are you driving in 120, 140 sometimes a year? And he goes, and I was thinking he's going to say, well, you got to drive the ball in the park. He goes, no. He goes, I got to get the ones when guys are on. I got to make sure if I got to ground out to get that guy in, that's what I got to do. I got to make sure those runs come in somehow. If the infield's back, I got to hit a ground ball. I always remember that. And what amazing advice that came to you too at such a young age.
It was crazy because somewhere along the line, we've interpreted style and charisma as fun. Right. Baseball is fun. The game in its totality is fun if you understand the play. They're categorizing bat flipping as having fun. So what do you do if you don't hit a homer? You ain't having no fun. So it's all about the home run. That's basically what you're saying, right? So I don't get the success because I ask kids, and I'm a religious man. Right. And I was just talking to our minor leaguers, and they get their base hits and they praise God and they do whatever they got to do, right? So I asked them, I said, well, let me ask you this. Why you don't thank God when you make an out?
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you pray to do you think God really cares if you get a hit or not? Well, yeah, he do. So I say, well, what happens if you pray and the pitcher's praying, who gonna win? God is selfish. He'd be like, nah, man, I'm gonna let him win, but I got you next week. You know what I'm saying? No. He gave you the ability to make a decision. If you stand on that batter's box and you don't swing, that ain't God's fault. You know what I'm saying? If you can't throw the ball over the plate, that ain't God's fault. So all of these things are used to try to perpetuate fun. Mm-hmm. Thinking of the game was fun for me. Anticipatory on how I'm going to do what I do was fun. Going first to third or holding somebody, hey, boy, you better not run. Okay. The competitive juices is fun. So this era now are picking what they want to be exciting, and swag is the word they use. I don't even think they know what swag means. It's like giving yourself a nickname. Yeah, I'm the mayor. I'm going to call myself the mayor. No, you didn't. Somebody else gave you that. Boy, you the mayor. You can do it. So you can't give yourself that. So that's where we're missing because we're branding. Everybody got a brand. They want to do this. They on Twitter. And all that's good if you do what you do. But the essence of this game is fun.
Yep.
And when you lose the essence, you see how different people play.
Yeah. Wow, that's good, man. That is so good. I want to go back to you, man. Back to you. 86 was kind of your coming out party. I mean, obviously you had a good year in 85. 86 is when you had 27 home runs. And get ready for this. 80 stolen bases. And I believe you only played in like 130 games, too. Just 80 stolen bases with 27 home runs. And I think Rickey Henderson's the only other player in the game to ever do that. Right. And then, so also during that time, now you start hearing, a lot of comparisons to Willie Mays. And we've never seen this type of talent in the big leagues, maybe ever, a once-in-a-generational player, Eric Davis. Can you take us back to those years, 86?
If you want to get somebody off their game, compare him to Willie Mays, damn it. What you go? Come on, bro. What? Here I am, 23 years old. You want me to the greatest dude that was catching balls down like this for real? Yeah, it was crazy. But
we were talking last night, and I was like,
shoulders off and stuff when it came to Willie.
Yeah. Everybody compared you to Willie Mays. What we talked about that, Sean and I last night. I'm like, what did you say when somebody's like, you're the next Willie Mays? Were you like, get off of me, man?
I always said it was a discredit to Willie.
And I really
don't
sell yourself short, man. And you're pretty amazing.
It's not selling myself short. I just think that when you're talking about one of the top 3 greatest players to ever play the game at that time, and you have the audacity to compare a 23-year-old kid who just touching every toilet seat in the game to him, to me that was disrespectful. So I always kind of brushed it off, but that was the year Pete Rose took me out of the leadoff spot, and he moved me to 5th because I stole 60 some of them bases after the All-Star break.
Wow! Oh my God!
And the most humbling thing I ever had happen to me during that run was we was in Atlanta, and Chuck Tanner was the manager then, and I mean I was just stealing everything. Said, please, thank you, and come again. I was stealing everything, right? So I hit a double, and Chuck Tanner had Glenn Hubbard hold me on second base like I was on first base.
Oh, wow.
And he did. Dave Parker was hitting. He was like, damn him, you hold him on base. And I stole after 2 pitches anyway. So Hub threw his hands up like this, like, what you want me to do? But that was, I mean, I was in that zone. It didn't matter. And knowing what it was going to take, and I beat my body up, and I wasn't but 175 pounds, but that was baseball. And that was the eccentric side of that. Then we come back the next year in 129 games, I hit 37 and still 50, which me and Barry Bonds is the only one that's in that. So I'm the only one that's in both of them. So, well, that's the game, though.
But that year, ED, like that was the first time I think people were like 40-40.
Yeah.
You kidding me? 40-40. Like Eric Davis was just 3 home runs away from 40-50. Right? It was just it was like you were doing things that the game.
And I ran into the wall in Wrigley Field and fractured 2 ribs. I had 37 homers and 100 RBIs and 50-something steals in August.
Oh, my. Did you really? Wow.
And I had 120-some runs scored. And if you look at that, I only played 129 games that year. Because I ran into – I mean, it was not a day – I didn't hurt myself mowing the lawn. I didn't hurt myself fishing or no shit like that. All of my injuries came from defense.
Right.
Getting myself in the World Series, I tore my kidney in 3 places diving after a ball. So that was just the way that I played in because the era that I came up, you had to prove yourself. You had to be, especially the National League, you had to be able to run, you had to be able to play defense, you had to be able to hit, because there wasn't no DH. If you couldn't play defense, you was out of there. I don't care how good a hitter you were, because they didn't have no room for you. So you had to play defense. So every facet of the game, there were so many players in the National League that was complete players because you had to be in order to stay on the field.
When you look back at those Reds teams, because you in 86, 87, 88, 89, you had MVP votes all the way from 86 to 90, one of the best players in the game. And like I still think that's amazing, bro. 37 bombs, 50 stolen bases, 129 games. You're doing that in August. I only imagine what that season would have ended up looking like, had you stayed healthy. I want to go to that 90 Reds team because, that was a team. I was a big Pirate fan at the time, brother. And like, I really didn't like Eric Davis and Barry Larkin, guys that have become friends of mine. I'm like, man, these guys are good. They're good. And the Pirates back then had Bonds and Bonilla and Van Slyke. And, it was a brawl. And Can we go back to that play with Bonilla in the 90? I think it was the championship series. I was at that game. Can you just take us through that play where Bonilla tried to stretch a double into a triple and forgot who was picking up the ball?
To center field, way back at the track. Hatcher can't get it. Bonilla is going to go for third with one out. He is out at third base. Out at third base. That was the right play to make, too, but they gummed it down.
Absolutely. Who gets credit for this ball hit to center field? The left fielder trailing the play. Billy Hatcher, this ball misses a foot from going out of the ballpark, and look at Eric Davis all the way from left, and he uncranks or cranks a strong throw to third to nail Bobby Bonilla.
First of all, I'm gonna tell you, back then we didn't care if you liked us or nothing. We didn't know you anyway, so it didn't matter. So what, like we was gonna be like, damn, Case don't like us, we ain't gonna go play. But I had I was in left field, and people don't realize I was playing left field at that time because I had a brace on my knee because I played with a torn ligament that whole year.
Wow.
Because I tore a ligament still in third base in Philly in April, and I didn't have surgery. I was like, no, I can get through this, and they shot me up, and I made it. But if you look at that team, we all had outfield assists in that series. The O'Neal threw somebody out, Hatch threw somebody out, I got somebody. It was an instinctual play, and it's something that we talk about all the time, is to back up your other outfielders. And first of all, I don't know what the hell Hatch was doing. If you see him run after that ball and hit the ball, you feel like he got shot with a bazooka and stuff. He fell all down. He was so dramatic, like, like, get up, get up. So I'm
that was, by the way, real quick, that was the fourth put out in that series so far. Fourth. There were three more before that with guys trying to take bases on you guys.
So we all was throwing guys out. So I'm seeing the play, and I'm telling Hatch back. But I'm telling him, no, don't jump playing off the wall, because you a little bitty dude. You ain't got no vertical. Come on, because you old set shot dude, man. You ain't dunking on nobody. So I saw him not really paying attention to me, so my instinct says, get over there, because this ball is going to ricochet. And I got there, I pick it up, I make my turn, I see him doing what he was doing, and I just let it eat. But we're taught those things, and there might not ever be another time where it comes into fruition. But when you are prepared and you anticipate, and then it allows you to react, you're never surprised about anything. And I tell our kids this right now, in case I said, if something on the field surprises you, you was not prepared for. Because the beauty of this game is before anything happens, the situation presents itself. Now, it's a matter of whether you're looking up in the stands or you paying attention to it. And I knew that if the ball got by him, I'm not thinking Bonilla's going to go to third. But when I picked it up, the crowd went louder, so I knew he was doing something. So I knew I didn't have a play at second base because of the play. So I knew that there was going to be a play at third. And if you watch me, I caught it and I turned around. As I turned around, I'm looking to see if he's doing it. And unfortunately for him, he was doing it. I just let it eat. And they told me that when Bobby looked up, he said, who threw that? They said, ED threw it. He was like, what?
Wow.
How did he throw this ball?
That's
and
amazing.
I was just being what I was supposed to be, but I was in left field because I had hurt my knee early on.
Yeah. Well, talk about that team a little bit, the 90 Reds, because, you had a lot of characters on that team. You had Lark, who was, one of the best players in baseball. You was one of the best players in baseball. You had a lot of really good players. But then you had guys like Hal Morris coming in. He could rake a little bit. You had Paul O'Neill out there, was just a winner and probably snapping down every time he got out. You just had so many good players. And then you had the Nasty Boys, who Dibble, Myers, and Charlton, who are still legends there in Cincinnati. We go back, everyone wants to talk about the Nasty Boys. Like, what was it like on that team in that clubhouse? And then you guys did that one rap stop where you're like, hey, we're red hot. And like, I'm like, what the hell is going on here with these? You guys?
I hope we didn't sound like that.
Wait.
I hope we didn't sound like that, Kate.
No, most of you guys were good. Most of you guys were good, but we dissected this last night, and fans, it'll be up on our YouTube page when we roll this video in.
Right,
but
right.
Can you explain? Can you talk? Whose idea was that? And like,
That was Barry
why did you allow
idea,
why did you allow O'Neal and Charlton to do anything in there? Because that was unbelievable.
Well, Barry from Cincinnati, he had a couple of his guys that was doing music at that time, and they wanted to. Actually, we did that before we clinched. So
Really?
Wow.
we had a lot of balls. And
That's
wanted to go
ballsy.
along
That's
with
ballsy
that.
right there.
But Barry choreographed that, and like we wanted everybody to be involved. But see, this is what was so special about that club. Everybody, we knew each other, and everybody. I was the older spectrum, and I was only a couple years older than everybody. But all of us came in. Me and O'Neal played an A-ball together.
Wow.
We was in Cedar Rapids. If you look at one of them pictures on my wall and stuff, me and him is in Cedar Rapids in '82 together.
Wow.
Sabo was a draftee. Larkin, Browning, Dibble, Charlton, Joe Oliver. So Jack Armstrong, who started the All-Star game that year, was like 12-1 at the break. So we had a homegrown style team at that particular time. Now, mind you, prior to '89, when Pete Rose got suspended, from '85 to '88, we finished second in the division each year. We just didn't have enough to catapult us over the hump at that particular time. So we were right there primed. And if you realize that year we had a lockout. In '90, we had a lockout in spring training. So when they ended the lockout, we had 2 weeks to get ready for the season. So we didn't have time. Everybody got their at-bats. Like the first game, I think we played 8 and 7 innings the first night.
Oh my God.
So we was getting ready. Everything was sped up. And it was the first time in Reds history that we didn't have opening day at home and we wasn't the first team. Because normally Cincinnati played the first game every year.
Wow.
We opened up on the road with Houston that year. And Barry hit a bases loaded triple in like the 10th inning, and we won our first 9 games, and everything was history from there. But we knew we had a good team. You just don't know how good you're gonna be until you start to get in to the season and you get to playing in the now. And then I hurt my knee, and Hatch was kind of ripping me a little bit. He was like, ED, I don't think you got to come back real soon because we 3 games up. I said, Hatch, you playing the best as you can. You 3 games up, and when I come back and I get hot, we're gonna be 12 games. That's the difference in me and you. Ask me about it, he'll tell you. And so once I came back, we took off, and our bullpen was phenomenal. I mean, our thing was that we played for 6 innings, and we went after everybody, saying if we get this lead by the 6th inning, the game's over.
Wow.
Because we could throw Dibble in the 7th, Charlton in the 8th, or Charlton in the 7th, Dibble in the 8th, or Randy. We could mix and match any way we wanted to. And so that's how we played the game. I can remember, I was telling you about the story about Jose Rio. Because I would always ask how many you gonna need today? How many you gonna need? Jose say, Poppy, give me 1, the lights is over. Give me 1, the nights is over. So I go in, I get him a run. He go back out there, he give it 2. I say, Poppy, what happened? He said, no, give me 2 more. I promise we win. So that was our mindset. That was our mindset. It was like, dude, tell me how many you need today, baby. We got to get 4 because he don't feel good. But that's how we like really went after people. And I would tell Larkin, I say, listen, man, I got 2 in me. It's $100 whoever on when I get him. So they would get hit by pitches. They was walking and stuff, and I would get a 2-run homer, 3-run homer, and I would put the $100 bills in their locker. those were things on how our camaraderie worked when you was talking about playing baseball.
Yeah.
Guys knew that Hatcher could walk and steal second and third. Lark could walk and steal second and third. So it made my job easy. So I'm taking the first pitch. But that's how we played.
Yeah. How about that home run you hit to start the World Series when you guys were playing Oakland? I remember thinking, oh, this is over. Oakland's so dominant. And then you come out first pitch, Dave Stewart, bam, big message sent. Like, what did that feel like, Edie?
Well, it was gratifying. It was more of, I got you, not from the World Series, because I faced him in the All-Star game the year before in the exact situation, and he threw me a first pitch fastball, and he threw me 4 splits and walked me. So I'm like, still, it's the All-Star game. What the fuck, damn? Yeah, he was like, nah. I'm like, okay. So 1 year later, preparation, anticipation, and reaction. I'm thinking of the same situation a year later.
Wow.
2 outs, man on first base. He threw me the exact same first fastball. I hit it. I don't know. It might still be traveling, but I hit it. But it was the same situation on what was going to transpire, and I just beat him to the point on that time. But it was special. But if Rio don't do what he do, we're not having that conversation.
Yep.
He was phenomenal.
Can I ask you a question?
7-0.
Yeah.
In the first game.
Can I ask something? This is for both of you guys too, and because it's so interesting. Like, you guys were an afterthought. The A's were going to have 5 straight World Series, and for both Sean and Eric, like the bulletin board stuff in football, you can be really pissed off and somebody said something, and you can go smack them and beat them up, and that's how you fight in the game. Can you guys explain at the highest level? You're in a World Series. You have the motivation, but in baseball, it's weird because you have to calm yourself down. You can't be too amped up. So how do you guys as professional baseball players take that energy and actually use it on the field without getting overhyped and, swing at the first 3 pitches and then you got 4 strikeouts and the game's over? You know what I'm saying?
Well, see, the thing about baseball is you have to win 4 games in order to win the title. It's not geared up to 1 game and I got to come out. No. Because you might have close to almost 55 at bats before you can say what that outcome is going to be. But from our version with Oakland, everybody was talking about Oakland, but the Dodgers just did them in 5 in 88. The Giants scored 7 runs a game on them in 89. They just outslugged the Giants because the Giants didn't have no pitching. They had Kevin Mitchell, Will Clark, Matt Williams, Robbie Thompson, the host of guys. The Giants had a tremendous offensive team. The A's pitching staff didn't stop them. So we knew Bob Welch came from the National League. Stewart came from the National League. Rick Honeycutt came from the National League. It was a lot of the guys that they had, we had faced. They had never faced the things we was given. And our staff was way better than the Dodgers, and the Dodgers did them in 5. The only game they won, Mark McGwire hit a homer in the 9th or the 10th inning of game 3. So everybody put them up like that because they had power. But in that year, in 90, we had 5 guys go to the All-Star game, and I wasn't one of them because I had tore my knee ligament. So it wasn't like we was just like bottom feeders and shit. You know what I'm saying? We had Danny Jackson should have won the Cy Young the year Hershiser went 17,000 innings in a row to beat him out. Browning had threw a perfect game. We had the most nastiest dominating bullpen ever. And we had 5 guys that was regulars that was all-star. So we didn't feel like they was going to dominate us. Everybody looked at the Bass brothers, but in the postseason, they was 1-1 in World Series.
True.
So we knew our pitching staff and our players was better than the Dodgers, and the Dodgers did them bad. So we did them worse. You ain't win the game.
Yeah.
I
So I don't know why everybody thought they was gonna do us. No.
I'll just never forget Sabo at the end going, "We beat them fair and square. We beat them fair and square. 4-0. We beat them fair and square."
That was Brewski.
So good. So Ed, you obviously I think it was game 4, you lacerated your kidney. Is that true?
Yes.
on a dot, you dove for a ball, lacerated your kidney, and that was it for you for the World Series. But that was kind of it for you with the Reds. You know, you played with the Reds in '91, and then off to LA, right?
Yeah.
And so when you go out, when you went to LA, you're with Darryl Strawberry now, and I always feel like your name and Darryl's name were always, together, because you guys grew up together in South Central LA.
Mm-hmm.
You were two of the best athletes out that way, but you had a friendship. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your friendship with Strawberry, and then also being able to play with him in LA.
The injury set me back, Case, almost 4 years.
Wow.
Because I don't think anybody in baseball history has ever lacerated a kidney playing baseball. So there was no book on how you deal with such an injury. I was in ICU for about 30 days between Oakland and Cincinnati. So
What? Dude,
it was a lot of things that transpired. I did not stop urinating blood until 3 days before training camp started. And once I stopped urinating blood, then I was cleared to go play. After them 3 days, I went to training camp and started training camp. So I got no physical, nothing. I didn't get anything. Now I'm out probably a year and a half. They like, you're going to miss the whole year. We got you. Don't worry about it. So, but my doctors told me it was going to be between 14 and 16 months before I was totally healed.
Oh my
God. That
God.
put me at a disadvantage. I couldn't even pick up my baby by May. I had no inner strength because I did no core work. I did nothing. So I was kind of like thrown to the wolves, but I don't really blame them totally because I didn't know either. And you didn't have physical therapy groups like you have now. You didn't have chiropractic. You didn't have none of the things that we see now. We didn't have.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati was the last organization to get 2 trainers. So, Larry Starr did all he could do under his circumstances. But that was what got me to LA, because they thought that they didn't really want to tell the public what was really wrong with me, because now they really looked at like they should have been looking from day one.
Wow.
So, and so me being the leader that I am and being outspoken, they didn't want that as the kids to say today, they didn't want that smoke because it was coming. Right. And so that's why they end up trading me to LA. And which under any circumstances, I wouldn't have never went to LA, because I know home and I know what surrounds home. And like I told you the first time, that when I went to Eugene, it was a blessing for me to get away from all of that.
Right.
But it was gratifying to put the uniform on and to play with Straw. And he ended up hurting his back. I ended up having triple surgery on my shoulder, hand, and wrist. So in the games that we played together in 2 years, I think was like 37-6 or 37-7 in the games that we both started. So we was doing our thing. We just couldn't stay on the field. But my name was always synonymous with Darryl because of our history as youth and us playing together in Connie Mack and coming out in the same draft and being friends. And a lot of the things that Darryl was going through, I got lumped into it just because we were friends and things of that nature. So I didn't allow that to interfere with our friendship, because he never tried to lump me into anything. It was always other people, and he always took the responsibilities of the things that he did off the field, but it didn't never stop me from being his friend. And all these years, people ask me all the time, they say, did you and Darryl ever? No, me and Straw never talked about drug abuse or him going to jail or doing none of those type of things. or him having a problem with drugs and alcohol and things of that nature. Not to say that if he wouldn't have asked me, I wouldn't have told him, but at that time, I felt as a friend, he needed me there to listen, and not to critique, and that's what I did for him as a friend, and I tried to get him to understand how I felt by my presence and how I was moving, and I think it helped him, and we still talk today, and friendships are always going to be friendships, and everybody, just like your brothers and sisters, you have up and downs, and you fight and you do different things. But our friendship was never any question. It was just that it was funny how you get two black kids from South Central. One was supposed to be Willie Mays, and the other was supposed to be Ted Williams. How the hell did you live that down?
That's so good.
I don't know any other black kids in this world at 18 and 19 years old. One was supposed to be the next Willie Mays, and Daryl was the black Ted Williams. How do you move to that? You know what I'm saying? How do you move to that?
Oh my God, so true.
Only place we can go is down.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, where do you go from here? Nowhere. You just go down off the cliff.
So,
yeah.
So, I mean, so it was great motivation, but we kind of accepted it with a grain of salt, and we used to laugh about it a lot of times when we were together working out and stuff like that. Come on, man, hit that like Ted. Okay, say hey, kid. So we always have fun with it, just to keep. See, anytime that you try and enhance something, it becomes pressure.
Mm-hmm.
We exhaled it and had fun with it, where we was able to woo-side and get it out the way. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we did. We woo-sided it.
That's so great. So great. And you did the right thing, because if you held on to that, you've probably been out of the game in 2 years. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Come on. Come on. Willie Mays and Ted Williams, are you kidding me? Come on, man.
Oh my gosh. So you and Straw would later on down the road, your friendship would come back into play. I want to go fast forward a few years. In '97 in Baltimore, you do your, I believe it was your physical for that year, or right around there, May. They find colon cancer with you, right, ED? Yeah. And then can you talk about that?
I was leading the league. I was in like 370, man. I came to the American League. I say this league is easy. I was killing this league and stuff. And we was in Cleveland, and so I scored on a sack fly or something, and got a minor little collision with the catcher and stuff. You know, we scored a run, so I wouldn't sit on the bench. And after we made the 3 outs, the pain hit me. I couldn't get up. So they took me into the thing, and they had me do some tests and stuff like that. So actually, I played the next day.
Wow.
Because we went to New York from there. And it was a day game and stuff. So I played the game, and they gave me some pills or something. They just thought it was something. And I can recall going back to the hotel, just laying on the couch in my room, agonizing in pain. So I called a trainer and say, man, something's wrong with me. I'm in pain. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna put you on. They put me on a train back to Baltimore. And they had the ambulance pick me up from the train station and took me to the University of Maryland Hospital. And I was there for 6 days, but they could not find out what was happening. So they told me, they saw the mass in me. They said it was an abscess. And so they tried to drain the abscess. They stuck a tube in my stomach, and they tried to drain it overnight. But nobody could tell me how it got there. So as this is happening, they're trying to say that I'm okay. So they want to send me back to go back to play. I was like, well, no, I'm not playing. So luckily, that I had a friend who worked for me by the name of Ramon Baines. She was from DC. She said, Eric, you need to check out of that hospital and go to Johns Hopkins. So I asked, Pat Gillick was our general manager. I said, Pat, I want to get a second opinion. He said, okay, where you want to go? I said, I want to go to Johns Hopkins. So they set it up. I checked out Wednesday morning, and I went over to Johns Hopkins from that hospital. And the first thing he did with me was a colonoscopy. Mind you, I was in that hospital for 8 days and they did everything but a colonoscopy.
Oh my gosh. Jeez.
They did everything but a colonoscopy. The first thing he did was a colonoscopy. He said, man, you got a tumor the size of a grapefruit. We got to go get this.
Wow.
And it was Wednesday. And I said, can we do it on Friday so my wife and my mom can be there? And he said, well, you know, Friday's the 13th. I said, I don't give a damn about Jason. He a movie. I kid you not. I tell him just like that. I said, that's a movie, Doc. I don't care about Jason. So called my mom and them. They came down and I had surgery June 13th. And
wow.
and they took out a third of my colon. And I didn't have any symptoms. It didn't spread. It was not in my lymph nodes. They just said that it had lodged in a corner of your colon and it was just sitting there. And when you got hit with the catcher, it kind of spurred it, jarred it. And that's when it started to move and the pain. So that was a blessing to me that if I don't run into the catcher, I don't know what was happening.
Wow. Wow.
So, I ended up doing 32 weeks of chemo. I was taking chemo once a week. And I worked out at home and stuff. And I went to UCLA and I was taking chemo and stuff. And once my doctor told me that it was nothing that would prevent me, it was just a matter of me getting back in physical condition from the scars and stuff of that nature, that you can go back to play if you can deal with the chemo. So Eric Anthony's wife was a good friend of mine. Eric Anthony, she's an herbalist down in Houston, Texas. So she used to brew me these teas that I would drink every day. And I actually ate while I was taking chemo. I would put a movie in and watch it, eating sandwiches and salads and stuff like that. So I never got sick. I never regurgitated. I never threw up or anything like that. So it was really nothing preventing me from playing outside of me getting back. Now, they wanted me to go down on a rehab assignment. So I finally come back. They decided you're going to go down a rehab assignment. I was like, no, I ain't going on no rehab assignment. They're like, why not? I say, man, I might hit 5 homers. That shit got to count on my bubblegum card.
Oh my God.
I'm not giving nothing. I'm not giving nothing to the game in the minor league. That don't count up here. So I'm down in Miami getting ready to play, and then I get a phone call and stuff that my brother passed away of a drug overdose. So I go home, go through all that, and I come back, and that's when I made my debut like 2 weeks later, and I end up playing in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. So it was tough.
Wow.
Then the crazy thing was that actually the next year, Darryl got colon cancer.
Right. Yeah.
And then I want to say a year after that, Brett Butler had cancer. So all 3 outfielders in LA end up having cancer.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
I don't know what the hell was going on in LA. I don't know if it was the grass or all that Italian food Tommy had us eating. I don't know. But we all 3 at some point had cancer, yes.
Wow. Did Straw lean on you during that time when he got his cancer?
Me and him had a conversation. Yes, we had conversations because he had it in 98.
Wow.
The very next year, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. Yes.
Wow.
So it was crazy, man. But for me, I was more relieved because of not knowing. I'm in the hospital and the chief of staff, can't nobody tell me how it got there. So I'm like, man, this shit. No, something ain't right if y'all can't tell. Somebody got to give me an answer.
Right.
So I just thank God that my friend told me to get out of that hospital and go to another hospital. And the first thing he did was a colonoscopy to find out what was happening. So that was a blessing in itself.
Isn't that crazy, man? 8 days you're in the hospital, and they don't do the one test that you needed.
The first thing I get him, he said, did they do a colonoscopy? I was like, no. He said, well, we're going to do this to rule this out. I mean, they stuck tubes everywhere but my anal. They did. They stuck it everywhere. They hit me all in the ear, nose, mouth. They put some shit in my neck cave. And the first thing he did was, "Now we're gonna try this first, player."
Oh my God!
And that's when he found out I had a tumor. So they did everything but that. I was so relieved because I knew what was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not knowing is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because if you know, I have a chance of fixing it or working it or doing something. If you got your car and it ain't running right and you don't know, you scared to drive it. You don't know when it's going to break down and stuff. But if you know, okay, this is the problem. Now let me figure out how to get my coins together in order to fix it. So at least I know. Now I ain't going to drive. It's somebody else. But if I don't know, I can break down in the middle of Timbuktu. So I'm really, so that's how that felt. So I was more relieved than anything.
Yeah. Wow, man. Wow. It's just amazing to hear you tell that story. Yeah. So 98, you come back, you dominate, you have your comeback player of the year. The Cardinals, you were there in 99 and in 2000. I played against you and I was like, man, I remember McGwire. The only guy I ever came out to watch batting practice was McGwire. And I was trying to gauge it because I'm like, this guy's hitting balls in the third deck like I'm hitting balls in the right center gap like during my and so I would watch your group because you were in his group, I believe, and I was like, okay, now who's getting close now? Okay, Eric Davis is the only guy hitting it into the second deck.
Yeah.
So I know this is really special what I'm watching. Like, was that the same feel you had with McGwire?
Everybody used to laugh and they got a big kick out of it because this is probably the first time that this happened where they opened up the gates for the home team, for the fans to watch the home team hit. Before, it was always open up for the visiting team. So wherever we went, everybody be cheering for Big Mac and stuff like that. You know, so I'll be like, shit, I can stretch some shit too. You know what I'm saying? So as soon as he come out and stuff like that, everybody be cheering. I go up on the train station, I come out, I'm waving and stuff, and now the crowd getting hyped and stuff. So I just had fun with it. Now, I never had problems hitting home runs and batting practice and stuff like that. So, but just the atmosphere, and I know it kind of calmed him down because he was not the show all the time. You know what I'm saying? And it could bother you for people to be looking at you like you're a piece of meat everywhere you go and stuff like that.
Yeah, like
so I tried to use my leadership and inject into that whole batting practice phenomenon, what was going on and stuff. Like we in Houston, and I'm hitting it up by the train station too. I'm like choo choo, you know what I'm saying? I'm up here too, you know what I'm saying? I ain't up on the glass, but I got my little choo choo going, you know what I'm saying? So I had a ball with it, man. I just enjoy the game and I enjoy life. So any way that I can bring some fun to it, I was gonna do that, Case.
Dude, you're the best, bro. I always say, like, I sent you a text last time we were together. I think it was the next day. I just said, bro, I just appreciate the energy you bring to life. Like when you're around Eric Davis, if you're not having love in your life, it might be you. You know what I mean? You might be the prop. You know what I mean? It's so crazy.
Right.
So
Thank you for that too, guys. I appreciate that.
Seriously, bro, man. You're one of a kind, dude. You're one of a kind. And talking about the Reds, bro, because I know for me going into the Reds Hall of Fame in 2012, that was my Cooperstown. You know what I mean? Like, I had good numbers. You know, I was a few All-Star teams, all that stuff. But I just, you know, but to be elected to the Reds Hall of Fame for me was like, man, look at these guys that are here. Like, it's phenomenal. You talked about Klazuski, but then you go Johnny Bench, and you got Dave Park, you got Pete Rose, you got Tony Perez. It's unbelievable. A lot of Cooperstowns in the Reds Hall of Fame. Well, you went in 2005, and I know when we go back, bro, and you know, we go back for the Red Jackets every couple years. You know, you're the guy. For me, you always stand out in that group of guys, a group of legends. Like, what did that mean for you going into the 2005 Reds Hall of Fame?
It was huge.
Yeah,
it was huge. I mean, if you really look at it, because I know our organization started that trend of jackets and team Hall of Fames. Because other teams didn't really do it with ceremonial stuff like we did.
Right.
And prior to me getting elected, I didn't even know we did it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how much we was doing it. But when I went there and I started to see, but when they built that museum, because there was never a museum before they built Great American Ballpark.
Right.
And so when you go through that museum and you see the history of this organization, and everybody talked about the back-to-back championships with the Big Red Machine. Yeah, but they went to World Series before that. They just didn't pull it off. I mean, Baltimore, Oakland, them 3 teams in Oakland, when they won 3 straight, I believe they beat the Reds twice probably.
Yeah.
And then the Orioles beat them. So, you had the 70s, they could have won 8 championships that year through that decade. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of history with Frank Robinson and Vader Pinson. And you go all the way back to Johnny Vandermeer. And then you see all the guys that are still living. What's the name that threw the 2 no-hitters? I love him. I can't call his name right now, though. But you see him when he walk in his presence, and everybody's just so humble, and how we get along and how we talk, and we could just sit down there and have drinks and talk for 5 hours and not even go into the Hall of Fame museum. You know what I'm saying? But when you look around and you see the talent that was in this organization, that made an impact in this organization, it really is second to none outside of Cooperstown. And I know other teams are starting to have jackets, and they're starting to express the gratitude of other players and things of that nature. But being the oldest franchise, being a part of a World Championship there, playing for Pete Rose, playing with Concepcion and with Tony, and Senior being instrumental in my career, Foster, Geronimo. I mean, it's just so many guys that we have in that organization that makes me feel proud to be associated with that type of group of guys who go in and say we are a part of this Hall of Fame.
One of the coolest things, I think one of the coolest moments of my life, bro, was this year when Marty Brennaman was going in, and we had the rain delay, and they're like, we're going to Plan B, and then they bring all of us down, by the dugout there. And we're sitting there, and I got the picture, but it's like you, me, Concepcion, Dave Parker, Lark, Johnny Bench, Johnny's holding court, Jose Rio, you and Rio are going back telling your stories. Bro, I honest to God, I was sitting there going, this is one of the coolest. It's one of the coolest moments.
My God.
I mean, these guys are going back telling stories the 70s. You're coming with the 80s. You and Rio are telling stories about, the World Series. Parker's telling stories about first meeting Barry Larkin when he was at Michigan, telling Concepcion, this guy's going to take your job. Like,
that's how
just so much great stuff, man. So much great stuff. And dude, we like to finish the mayor's office here. We do a little fun game where Chinch comes in. It's called 9 and 90, and he just asked a couple random things. So Chinch, you want to take this away? Finish this off?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for coming on, man. You're one of my favorite players of all time, and one of the coolest dudes ever, man. I'm honored to be Sean's friend, and because he has really cool friends, I get to hang out with you guys. And so this is my contribution. It's the dumbest thing we do. So it's 9 questions. We say it's 90 seconds. It takes longer than that. I'm going to ask Sean a question. It's a this or that. He's going to give his answer, and then when he's done with his answer, you just answer the same question right off him. Okay?
Okay.
Ready?
Hall of Fame baseball broadcaster Marty Brennaman here. It's time for 9 in 90, the most ridiculous segment in all of sports.
First one, Sean. Would you rather show up at a party as the only person wearing a suit or as the only person not wearing a suit?
I'd rather show up as the only person wearing a suit because my mom was always like, you can never be overdressed.
That's true. All right, Eric.
I was overdressed everywhere I went, so you know what I'm saying.
All right, great.
I'd rather be in that suit. Absolutely.
I figured that. All right, Case, are you more likely to get a parking ticket or a speeding ticket?
Speeding ticket. I got a lead foot. I got problems. I got a lead foot.
I'm the opposite. I'll park anywhere to get out. The closer to the venue, that's where I want to get out because I hate to walk anywhere.
All right. I'm the same way. All right. Skype, Zoom, etc., Sean. Amazing inventions or the end of the world?
I think they're amazing inventions, except when I send Eric Davis a Skype. Try to get Eric Davis Skype.
I didn't even know Skype still existed until I got the link. I'm trying to get on my iPad. I'm like, Skype, they don't make that shit for the iPad. Oh, so I gotta go get my laptop? We was doing Skype in like 89, 92. So it might be the end of the world if we keep using Skype.
That's a great answer. All right, this is a hoops question because we got our guy on, Sean.
Oh, yeah.
You have the first pick in the draft. You're starting a franchise. You got point guards. They're all the same age. Magic Johnson, John Stockton, Jason Kidd, or Steph Curry. Who do you draft number 1?
I'm gonna have to take Magic Johnson. I don't know. I just think he was 6'9" and at a different level.
Okay.
Magic Johnson, hands down.
I agree with that. Beautiful. All right, Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man, Sean?
I'd like to fly one day, so Superman.
Okay.
Batman didn't really have no powers, but he had all the money in the world, so I might say Batman.
Oh, great answer.
He didn't have to hang. He didn't have to do none of this. He didn't have to fly. He didn't have to do nothing. But he had the coolest crib because it was underground. And he slide down the pole and jump into his thing, and nobody knew. Bruce Wayne was a bad man.
So good, E.D.
Case, would you rather be a famous painter or a famous singer?
Oh, I'd rather be a famous singer because, they're out there just rocking it out and famous singer.
Don't nobody cheer for no painter, man. You can't drop on your knees and be painting and stuff like that. You got to get the crowd hyped and everything. So you want to be a singer, absolutely.
Beautiful. All right, Doritos, Goldfish, or combos, Sean?
Oh, you know what? I like the combos. Like whenever I take a trip to go see my kids at college, I get like a nice bag of combos, nacho cheddar or something like that. Delicious.
I'm gonna say Doritos because when you're watching a football game and you got some dip, I can't put my Congos in the dip. So you got, man, your hands is out now, man. Get the Doritos and go on about your business, man.
You are the best at this. You are There's 2 left, and you're already the best at this. 25 shows. All right. Worst rapper in that video we talked about before. Was Paul O'Neill worse or Norm Charlton, John?
I'd have to say Norm Charlton was worse.
All right, E.D.
I would probably have to say Jose Rio was worse. You didn't know what the hell Jose was saying. I didn't know if he was rapping or grinding up crackers or rocks or something. I don't know what the hell he was saying.
All right, last one. In your primes, Eric Davis and Sean Casey line up for a 100-yard dash. Now we know Eric will win the 100-yard dash. How many yards will he beat you by, Case?
I mean, I think if ED gave me 25, if I talk about 25 yards, if he gave me a 25-yard head start, I think
it would all be predicated on the head start that he got.
You would beat him 25 yards
on the head start.
He would lap you into it. You need 40, dude.
40 yards?
40. Yes. What was your 40 time? Probably like 4. Your 40 time was like
a 6'5".
It's just like a 4.3.
I could probably catch him in the 50 because I remember the highlight that I watched the other day.
Oh, good.
As he hit a line drive and he thought it was out, and then they dropped it, and then you see him turn around and run it, but he wasn't going nowhere. He spiked his helmet. That was like 2 days for him to get to first base on that one, so I got him on that one.
Beautiful, awesome.
ED, do you know how frightening it is when you're running down the line going, oh my God, I'm going to get thrown out from left. Oh my God, I'm going to get thrown out from left. Oh my
I'm
God.
glad I didn't have to experience that.
Oh man.
Oh my God. Hey brother, thank you so much for coming on with us, man. This has been an absolute treat for Chinch and I, and it'll be a treat for all the people that tune in to us, man. And I hope to see you here soon, brother. I'm sure I will.
Thanks for inviting me, man. I appreciate this, Case.
You got it.
Thanks, Chinch.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Alrighty.
Thank you, brother. Take care of yourself, man.
All right, now you too.
Case. Oh my God. I'm like excited. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna go call everybody and tell them how I just got to talk to. First of all, I'm sorry. Clean bill of health. That guy was like Michael Jordan back in the day, and we didn't even get into it with him. Like, he was the first guy to wear high top cleats.
Right.
And he's so good and he's so cool. I'm so jealous.
That's the one thing about Eric Davis. I was saying, when you go to Cincinnati and you're around all these guys at the Reds Hall of Fame, like Eric Davis's personality, he's just such a good guy. He brings so much positive energy. And that was just a great look at what he's all about, and how awesome Eric Davis is.
Yeah, and funny, he mentioned his generation of players that he played with on the Reds, and you say the same thing about him. I want to give a shout out to the Cincinnati Reds organization, because I think there's a culture there that is very unique to Major League Baseball that not a lot of other teams have, because the love that these guys, you and your teams, him and his teams, you're talking about 80s, 90s, 2000s. It's always about the positivity of the team and the group.
They do a great job, Chinch. They do a great job, Cincinnati Reds. Like you said, outside of Cooperstown, you won't find a better Hall of Fame and an organization that respects their history and loves the players that have played for that organization. And everyone that wears the red jackets in that Hall of Fame is very grateful for how the Reds organization treats us.
Absolutely, man.
It's and also too, I just want to say to everyone out there, the people that are treating us right, the people that are listening to our podcast, to our show, really are grateful. We see the numbers going up, and we're very, very thankful that you keep tuning in. We think we're getting some of the best guests out there that have some unbelievable stories, and it's a lot of fun, So if you want some time to just get away from the everyday hustle and bustle of life, and tune into the mayor's office, we appreciate you guys tuning in. And go find us on where you find your podcast. You can find us on YouTube and also nofilter.net. So we will see you guys next week. Chinch, I will see you next week, my man.
Love you,
and really looking forward to it. Love it, brother. Love you.